Well, welcome to KramerTALK, where we go beyond product announcements, explore people, ideas, announcements, and experiences. And those people shape really the future of enterprise technology. I kind of like to say technology might drive transformation, but people drive technology. And that's really where the stories are told today. On KramerTALK, we welcome Cory Johnson. Cory joins as a technology and financial journalist and investor and entrepreneur. He's going to discuss what he's accomplished and what his thoughts are on technology, what's shaping across businesses, markets, and innovation. Cory, how you doing today? What's going on?
What's up with that cool music you've got up there at the top of the podcast? Who is that playing guitar? That sounds good.
Mick Jagger, Sweet
Mick
Thing.
Jagger.
Yeah, and wow.
Not cool. Known for his guitar playing.
So he probably did not, but it's from a show that David Duchovny was on, and he was jamming to it outside barbecue. I'm like, that's a cool song. He looks cool. He's a cool guy. Maybe I could take a look at that song. I did the Shazam thing where I used some technology to figure out what song it was.
And, here's a secret. Can I tell you a secret? You and your viewers and listeners? The music on my podcast and the Drill Down podcast was recorded by me. I played all the instruments on it.
Wow.
I mean, the drums are tracked, but I wrote the track and then had the drums executed. Can you imagine what music's going to sound like after all the AI can like make things that were previously difficult easier, like tone quality, or guitar players like me who know how in theory to play the drums but can't figure out how to hold the sticks?
Well, that's interesting because I went to see a concert last night. Wilco. Have you heard of Wilco? It's kind of a very, very, probably our generation, but tight, solid, amazing band.
Yeah.
Nothing theatrical behind them. Just core instruments, great music. And I told my wife, I said, "This is a real band."
I went to see Olivia Dean on Friday. Also, tight music. But the opening act, back to technology, right? The opening act was a woman named Baby Rose, singer, getting a lot of accolades as a singer, with a bass player and a drummer. Was he bass player, drummer? Yeah, bass player, guitar, and the rest was all queued up using MIDI on a laptop.
So did it sound real?
Sounded tight. No, some of it was real, right? Like the drum track and the synth wasn't, although it was queued up to match, so they had to hit that track. But some of it was live and real with the guitar and bass. It was an interesting combination. I think technology leads these little things that we can't imagine when we're talking about, how many flops a semiconductor can turn, and the cost of ASML machines being sold to Taiwan Semiconductor and Intel. We don't think about these end use cases that are going to be the ones that really matter.
Well, even to that point in sports, where do you stop with AI and where do you let them play for the real game, for the nostalgia of the game? I mean, how far do you want to go with music to where does the listener really want it that much? So you've had a front row seat to technology as a journalist, investor, and entrepreneur. So which role has caught your eye the most, and about how the industry really works today? Which one do you fall back on? Do you add them all up and it's gotten you to where you're at today?
So I started as a journalist covering sports and crime in New York City, and strangely, and moved on into covering Wall Street, sports, crime. Wall Street seems to all fit together. At least Wall Street and sports, you had a score. And then after, and helped start TheStreet.com with Jim Cramer. I started a basketball magazine called Slam Magazine a million years ago. Went on to start TheStreet.com with Jim Cramer. We were both writing for New York Magazine prior to that.
Good lesson.
And I found the real, not the real Cramer, the other Cramer.
Yep.
I've got my favorite. Let's just say I'm not on Jim's podcast right now. No, Jim's been very kind to me over the years. But I left journalism to go work in the world of hedge funds, and I worked initially as kind of I think that the first fund manager, Carlo Canella, who hired me, saw me more as an investigator. And he had his Harvard MBAs. He literally, the same day I started or got hired, there was a Harvard MBA who was hired who had a multi-year career in private equity, and I had more experience putting on makeup. But having come from a TV job for a little bit, I was at CNBC as our first Silicon Valley correspondent. But when I went into hedge funds, my role was as a researcher and as an investigative researcher. And the idea was that there was information out there that would inform you about stocks in particular, not just companies, that an MBA might miss, that a spreadsheet might miss. And over years, I developed the skills of a financial analyst, and I spend enormous amounts of time staring at models and doing financial calculations and trying to understand what makes the numbers work. But underneath the numbers has to be the technology and the business. And so now what I'm doing as an analyst is I spend a lot of time looking for asynchronous pieces of information through interviews or random documents or just talking to people that other people are talking to, but hearing something different. I follow that up with trying to understand it both from a technological standpoint, but also a financial standpoint, so that I'm still building complex financial models, but it's based on the kind of anecdotal reporting that maybe an old-fashioned print report or something might come up with. And the result is a different kind of analysis, I think, that hopefully is valuable to my customer.
Well, that's interesting, because I think you have to understand the math underneath. Because if something changes,
thank from your lips to God's ears. But how many other people are analysts like us? We don't have to call anybody out, but how many analysts do we know who don't ever do the numbers, don't ever look at the numbers, and don't care about the numbers? And it is business. It's a
foundation is too important. You have to know what you're talking about and the gist of it, and make actually good advice based upon the knowledge that you have. So that foundation is super important. But so just kind of leading to this next question, you've interviewed a lot of these executives over the years, people who lead companies, people who are, we look up to these people. These are the great people in the world.
Yeah,
some of them aren't, some are not. So what separates these leaders, from others, and those who actually truly understand the business, maybe the math that we just talked about, to actually tell the story right, or to even tell a better story than is the correct story? What separates?
I think that we see different skill sets at work with different CEOs. It's been interesting to me. One of the sectors that I follow a lot is the optical sector. And there have been some changes in management at Coherent and Lumentum in particular, two companies whose stocks are up more than 600% in the last year. I think Coherent's at that level, both with new CEOs. In one case, the CEO came from the semiconductor world. In the other case, a CEO came from another company that got bought out years later. But they took over from more technical founders, and they're more polished. They're both handsome, hail fellow, well-met guys. They're good with a handshake and a slap on the shoulder. They know their technology. They know their companies, but they're big-time CEOs with different skill sets. And who knew both these companies were about to take center stage? I think you see different skill sets at work with different CEOs. And sometimes there's different, I see it here physically here. I'm in Shack 15 in the Ferry Building, a private club for entrepreneurs. So I see a lot of startups who are working on their very first PowerPoint. Some of these companies have gone on to grow to $100 million plus companies. One of the companies down the hall from me 4 years ago, Positron, it was 2 or 3 guys. Now it's got $1.1 billion private market valuation. So
crazy.
I see these companies grow, and I see the time Positron's a perfect example that went from a sort of technical founder to a CEO who's got other skills and different skills. And you see companies kind of go through those changes. So it's a long answer to your question. What are these CEOs like? They're different. Right. And the different roles aren't just accidental. There's different times at a company that different jobs are necessary.
And I don't think anything's accidental. I think you need some luck, but there's no new company on the market that hasn't worked hard and doesn't have an advanced technology to get there. Right. I think, like, you have kids that are in their 20s. I do too. And they have to go to education. They have to have hard work, not yours or mine, or just in general, the millennials, it's not as easy as it looks, but people make it look easy. But when you hear a company make a major claim about AI, about transformation, and are you skeptic when you hear them, or do you immediately feel like, that's a great new thing because it's out there? Going back to, is it hard work? Is it a real idea? Because I cover a lot of stuff. I cover ERP and data and AI, and there's a lot going on in the space where companies are going through more of an evolution of change of platforms and operational ways that they're doing business. There's nothing there's no magic to get it done. It's pure hard work. And so, is there anything that's easy, or are you always skeptic,
You
or both?
know, I have, in some ways, I've always been the same person. I've always been an old man, for example. Now I'm actually an old man, but I've always been an old man since I was in my probably teens, certainly my 20s. And I think I certainly have always been skeptical, and probably more skeptical than most people around me. I've tried to avoid being cynical,
Right.
which some skepticism, some skeptics are cynics also, or some cynics mask their cynicism as skepticism. Um, uh, you know, for a true skeptic, the secret is underneath it. There's someone who really wants to believe. So I am a core believer in hope. I am a patriot. Um, and I am a believer that technology can make great changes to make the world a better place. But I spend almost all my waking moments trying to form a more perfect union, to criticize, not criticizing this country, but criticizing our country, but pointing out when our country is failing us, pointing
Yeah.
out, seeing where technology is not working out. And I've made a lot of money, and some, not the most of the money I've made in my life, but a lot of the money I've made in my life has been as a short seller and looking for fakes and frauds and failing businesses, and looking at places where other people are seeing opportunity, but a more skeptical look reveals things that just aren't there, that aren't working out, or lying and cheating, stealing CEOs and executives and investors.
That's pretty interesting. I always like to say I'm cautiously optimistic, but at the same time, you know, it's probably the other end of the spectrum as you are. But I think that there's a lot to be said for new technology, but also using the technology that you have better. Because I don't think a lot of companies use it better. I don't think you put new technology in a business because you think you need it. I think you put it in where there's a gap with the processes and the people that you currently have to
So
make it better.
let me push back on that and a little bit. So don't you think a lot of companies in the last 18 months have been using AI, not knowing what they're going to get out of it, but hearing that they've got to try it out?
For sure.
There's a company called Brain Trust that I helped to start
Yeah.
down the hall here. It's a marketplace for freelance tech workers and other freelance workers as well. It uses a crypto token to mediate some of the things that happen on the network. But the CEO, Adam Jackson's private company, he's absolutely one of the most impressive people I've ever met in my entire life. And he challenged everyone at his company I happen to join a Zoom call because I'm an investor in the company as well. And he called for every single person in their company at their one-on-ones to report back every week to say something that they're doing with AI that they weren't doing the week before. And this is probably maybe even 3 years ago.
Wow.
I thought, Jesus, if Adam's doing that, usually when Adam's doing something, I should probably be doing it too. And so I started doing that, looking at my own work and how I could use AI, not knowing what I would get, but trusting that someone who is a leader, if not smarter than me, and he's both, might be pointing the way to a better direction for me. Well, I have 100% been able to, I shouldn't use that. I mean that as a linguistic term. I have very much changed the way that I do my work, and it has led to so much better and faster output as a result of using AI. But I don't think that the proof is there for a lot of the companies at this stage of AI and where we were 3 years ago. I don't think the proof is there first. I think companies are jumping in, hoping that there's somewhere to land.
I think it's both. And I think you're right. It should be used. There's something that I talk about. It's called Industry 5.0. There was Industry 4.0, which was Smart Factory, 5.0, collaboration, humans and robots, 6.0, autonomous. We're at probably 4.5, getting to 5, where you want the humans and the robots to work together, but the humans to be more strategic, where you use the robots for the manual tasks, automation, AI, but we're not training the humans to be strategic, to be used correctly.
Yeah.
And then you have a data problem. So I think it's a combination. You want to use it. You want to put it in where your processes could use some help to fix the manual tasks. There's no doubt this is a revolutionary change and enhancement and efficiency to the businesses, but it has to be it has to be done strategically, correctly, where it's going to work. The data, we had a data problem for a long time, and now we're asking that data to perform. So
Right,
the
right.
data, the data, the system of
By
records.
data problem, you mean messy data or unstructured data or data that was structured improperly
Yeah,
and kind of allowed to sit around and rot.
right. Because when you closed out the books, you just closed it out and you didn't use the data anymore. You ran your reports and that was it. Somebody kept the manual spreadsheets. Now we're pulling it all together. We want the data to be more action oriented. Well, the data is not set up for that correctly. So we got to clean that up so we could use AI properly. I think a
But
lot
don't
of
you think that middleware is cooked? Like that's the worst place to be in software right now, because there used to be a fantastic business of cleaning data up when it was moving from one platform to the next, middleware. And it just seems to me that that's exactly the stuff that Claude Code and its ilk will destroy, middleware.
Well, I think it needs to be done at the roots and then, or at the ERP transactional level where all that data sits, or the sources that you're using it. So I think it needs to be done at the core, not at the middle, like what you're saying, it's not going to be used as much. I think it needs to be, I think you're going to have less technology and you're going to have that technology perform better. And I
Yeah,
think you're gonna have
100%.
more singular platforms with better ecosystems where everything's going to work together instead of having 300 different technologies in a firm where you're not going to know who's using what. This
But
needs to be,
cleaning up data is so much easier now than it's ever been.
should be. But you might have a manufacturing company, say you're at $10 billion and you have, 10,000 SKUs, and you might have each SKU in there multiple times. You don't have it set up where it's parent child. You might have it set up where you have each one as its own SKU and they're not married together. It has to be redone.
Right.
I mean, these are the problems that AI can perform better once it's structured correctly. Just look out to what it could be like in a couple of years if the data is done at that level.
All right, so I'm not a believer in the SaaS apocalypse. Right? I'm not a believer that. So I'm gonna adjust my microphone so I don't screw up our sound. I'm not a believer in the SaaS apocalypse. I don't believe that Claude and ChatGPT or whatever, or GSM 5.2 for that matter, are going to get rid of SaaS software. That
No.
Salesforce is in trouble or Microsoft's in trouble.
No.
But let me try this theory against you and see what you think. I take the ferry in from Oakland in the East Bay, where just here in the ferry building where I am, and I pass a lot of kind of family-owned but water-based businesses near the port of Oakland. Maybe there's like a Schnitzer Steel. It's a bigger business, but I know like there's a metal recycler who's got a plant right there, and you see some of these warehouses and stuff. And I imagine there are these companies that have a family-owned. Let's say you've got a $10 million a year business that's doing, or even a $5 million a year business. It's got 20 employees, and they've got, a $2 million or 20% operating margin, which might be really good, right? They're doing $1 million in profits a year. If they were to go out and they're running everything on Excel or something that's off the shelf from Microsoft, it's not really tailored for their industry. They can't get the quick answers they want, but it's easy enough and it's there for them, and that's the best tool they've had. Because to build custom software, they have to go out and hire 5 software engineers with health benefits. In Bay Area might cost them $200,000 a person. Suddenly your $1 million profit's gone.
Right.
Well, what if they can do that with one software engineer and Claude for $200,000? Build a customized software product that's better than the Excel crap that they're using, and on the margin, they're hiring one software engineer. They're getting a $200,000 cost, and they might be actually getting better productivity out of it in the back end. I think that's where the threat is in the software industry for AI, which is there will be more tailored solutions for certain problems that will get rid of some kind of general purpose software that is represented growth on the margin.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you, but I think what is happening is that if we go talk a little bit about the ERP business, so if they're running an ERP and they migrate to a modern version on the cloud and they go to one of the industry specific ones where They share some of those industry knowledge because there's other companies on that same system, same industry package, and there's AI built into it. I think, and they can rely on that vendor for their support and their, they might still need that one IT person, but they're not going to need a plethora of people to manage this. These systems are competitive advantages. They can't survive with an antiquated on-premise system long term. They can go baby steps, but they need to change because they're not going to be relevant, like you said at the beginning. How do you become relevant and work your way backwards? We're going to an event-driven era where it's agentic AI, event-driven systems of action. If you don't want that, you can't do it manually. You can't rely on, Betty to do inventory on Excel and think it's going to be good. There's a reason why there's sales, right? Sales are for the mistakes. Sales are because you did not judge what the market wanted and you overproduced, right? And when you walk in a store, say it's a retail furniture store, and there's like $2 million on the floor, is that what they want to show, or did they make a mistake? Right. So, and that mistake is a big deal because it goes to the average of what your total sales are. You had 100% profit. Now you got 10% because you didn't sell it right, or you didn't manage the inventory right. But, yes, I think you're right. So you like finances. So when you dig into the earnings and the financial results, do the numbers tell us something that the press releases or the executive presentation does not? Because I like hearing about.
We have a score. I'm watching the game right now.
Yeah, what do we got?
England scored 1-0.
Okay. I like.
Not rooting for England.
Well, I was a fan of France losing. Spain played a very diplomatic game of passing and aggressive shooting.
I was rooting for the U.S., of course, but realistically, my club here is owned by a Norwegian guy, so I'm all of our conference rooms are named after different fjords. I was 100% rooting for Norway, and bummed to see them go out.
Yeah, they played good. How much time we got left in the game? Like 30 minutes?
They got a lot of time.
Okay.
Yeah, about 40 minutes probably. So, when I look through finances, what I look for is the loose thread to pull on. I look for the thing that doesn't make sense sometimes, or looks like a little different. I also look, I don't know, there's a lot of things to look for. When I'm looking for a short, that's certainly what I'm looking for. When I'm looking for a company that's not living up to their promises. But when I'm looking at, I look for kind of often second derivatives. So I look for not a number that's getting better, but where the pace of change is changing. So I look for something that's indicative of movement within the movement, if you will, like someone who's already running fast but starting to run faster, some product that's selling all of a sudden a lot better. One of the really incredible things we've seen in this data center build out era is gross margins of some companies are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch ASML out there, which realistically has 3 to 10 potential customers. That's it. ASML, a company that has struggled for lengthy periods of its existence, is now bringing their margins from like 51% to 54% for products that cost $200 million. I mean, imagine you're the U.S. government. You give Intel a few $1 billion. They go out and they spend it on a Dutch company that says, okay, we'll let you buy one of our $100 million. There's products that cost us $100 million. Pay us $200 million for it, or $205 million.
So is it real, or is it?
Oh, it's absolutely real. I think the most incredible things ever invented in the history of mankind are made by ASML. It's the most complicated device ever, and no one else makes anything anywhere near as good. Heck, the lenses in their machines are the most complicated things ever made of glass in human history. Thinking people making glass in America, in the world forever. It's an incredible device, but the notion that these margins on hardware products, whether it's NVIDIA chips with margins of 85% and higher, whether it's these ASML machines of 53% margins, I mean, these are software margins.
That's crazy. Well, those are always going to be a little higher. But so was
Micron,
there ever?
Look at Micron. Mike, this is a business that goes through lengthy periods of losses, and now they're also talking about margins of well over 60% for selling memory. We've never seen anything like this for a cycle that's lasting longer than we've ever seen before already.
I remember when these complex systems cost a fortune, and now they're still expensive, but 1,000% more everything inside, memory, hard, just the hard drives, everything. But was there ever a company or technology that you underestimated, and then you realized that it was much more important than you thought? Any shorts that you went against that turned around, that maybe you made money on its way back, or you underestimated a technology that proved you wrong?
I'm way too stubborn to have owned stock of the things I've been short for the most part. Tempur-Pedic was one. Tempur-Pedic was the Apple computer of mattresses.
Yeah.
Where it's a different business now. They own a lot of different mattress companies. So it was just a memory foam business. They were able to charge, again, when the rest of the industry was doing low single digit margins, 2 to 5%, Tempur-Pedic had a 35% profit margin on their product. And the result was they could sell a lot less, and still they sold a small percentage of the industry's mattresses, but had most of the industry's profits, which was what Apple was for the longest time.
I hate walking in a mattress store. They're like on you like car salespeople.
It's a tough business. But we were short that stock. It was a fund I worked at. We were short the stock based on some inventory problems that they had, and I changed my mind about it. And the inventory problems happened. They stacked up a ton of inventory, and they were trying to build a second factory because they're having a lot of demand. They're building a second factory in the U.S. And this applies to technology, right? This happens in technology companies too. When they're trying to manage fantastic growth, they spend a lot of they borrow money. They spend a lot of their cash flow in building new capacity. In this case, was a new factory for Tempur-Pedic. And during that time period, they were shipping a lot of product into their channel. In this case, moving product from Europe into the U.S. Well, the result was they got too much product. The economy slowed down a little bit. Their new factory wasn't done, so their cash was tied up, and they hit an air pocket. And we're going to see that in this AI build out as well. We're going to see things just like that. Now, in the case of Tempur-Pedic, I turned around. I visited over 100 stores selling Tempur-Pedic mattresses, and every single one told me how much they loved the product and couldn't get enough and had no complaints at all. And so when the stock collapsed, the partner, the guy who ran the fund, Carlo Canelli, was sitting at the trading desk, and he hollers across the desk at me, "What do we do with this POS?" I was like, "Cover. Like, let's. I'm not good at taking profits. Take our profits in this one, because this is a product everybody loves. Let's get out of the way of this thing. We made our money. Let's get out of the way." But for the most part, I look for companies that are lying and cheating, and I'm not inclined to trust them later on when things might be turning around.
It all catches up, the smoke and mirrors. And so, kind of like my last question to conclude, after covering technology for so long, it is a great space, and it's so fun to talk about because it changes so much. What still excites you about the industry, and what do you think you want to spend more time talking about as you transition?
Well, I guess I'm pretty stoked that we're talking about enterprise technology again, because when I started investing in technology when I was quite young, and then later covering technology as a reporter, and then when I couldn't invest in it, it was enterprise technology we were talking about. We weren't talking about the consumer uses of technology, with very rare exception. We weren't talking about Twitter and Uber and Instagram and all the things that in the late 2010, 2015, 2016, 17, even 2020, the journalists who covered technology were covering things that consumers use, and they thought they understood technology because they knew how to tweet, right? Well, now understanding technology is understanding semiconductors again. It's understanding networking, optical networking, God forbid. It's understanding how things are wired together. It's starting to be understanding software a little bit. And so I think that it's been really exciting for me in my career to go back to having enterprise technology hot.
Yep.
Just like it was, 20 years ago.
Do you think that some of the vendors and even the analysts, or even some of the customers, don't totally understand what the outcome is of these technologies, because the vendors spend too much time talking about the shiny new red car with no playbook and no outcome, of how my customers are going to get there, or the customer, or we as the customer. I think the customers are interested when there's a new technology out. What does that mean? Instead of, because we know what it means, but we don't know what it means.
It's a great question. I don't think it is necessary for everyone at every stage of the food chain to have a holistic view. It's cool if they can do it. We were talking about the skills a CEO needs to have. It's really cool if you ever understand. I dinner with Brian Krasanich many times, former CEO of Intel, but I remember having dinner with him once somewhere in Silicon Valley. And he said there are only 3 people at Intel who know how to make a Pentium chip. At that time, they're top of the best chip in the world. Yeah. So what do you mean? He's like, he said there are only 3 people who know how to make every aspect of the chip and know how it's made. Like, 3, exactly 3? I said, do you know who they are? He said, well, you're having dinner with one of them. I'm like,
that's
why?
Pretty cool.
And he said it was a national security issue.
Probably.
He said that they couldn't have people with all of that knowledge because it was a risk to world peace. It was a really interesting notion here.
What a great conversation.
I think he's such a fascinating guy. I should probably tell him that, not you that, but I should. But great guy. Still 1-0. I worked for a company for a while that wanted me to do research, analysis, trading, and sales. And my argument was, I'd like to think I can do all those things well, and maybe I can, but if I've got this iPhone, right? It's pretty cool.
Yep.
Can do lots of stuff. The guy who can invent this thing and build this thing probably couldn't figure out how to work at a Genius Bar and explain how to fix it, let alone sell it and run the cash register.
Right.
And the guy at the cash register probably can't build it. So maybe let the builders build and the salespeople sell, and you'll end up with a better company. I don't think that someone who's working in technology, therefore, needs to, who's working at the levels that you and I deal with people when they're working in ERP systems, when they're working on semiconductor design, when they're working on optical networking solutions and can understand how to tune a laser, need to know how to write a prompt.
Well
it's just a different skill. And I think that excellence might be achieved when you let specialists pursue their specialties.
I think that's well said. Well, we'll end it on that. Robert Kramer from KramerTALK. Thank you, Cory Johnson, for joining us. We'll see everybody next time. Thank you, Cory.
Thanks, man.